Do I get a countdown?
1, 0.
That's it.
We're live?
We're live now? All right, so this is our second time giving this a shot, and we talked about baked in last time. This time I have Jeff Benjamin with me, and Jeff, if you don't know him, he is the digital executive creative director here. He's been at the agency for
almost 6 years.
6 years, yeah. And at the beginning, Jeff got here, and it was like him and 3 other guys all in one office, and there was a lot of body odor in there, and that was our whole digital offering. And now there's a little over 200 people just dedicated to digital, and it's been a big focus of ours. So it's cool to get some time to chat with Jeff. The format that we're using is we're going to do and this will be ongoing, we'll do a really quick presentation. Jeff's got like probably 5 or 6 minutes, and he's going to tell you what his topic is and what he's going to talk about, and talk about it a little bit. And then we'll go to Q&A, and that all comes in through Twitter, and we've already seen some questions coming in, so we'll be answering those. It's one question that we'd like to get your feedback on is Jeff, is he showing too much skin? Is it the right amount of skin? Would you like to see like one other button, or maybe open up one other button? Because I feel it's a little in the middle, personally. It's like it's got to go up, it's got to go down. So that'll be something we can address too. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks for the intro. And I'm a little nervous, so I might ramble. I'm a rambler. But
there's nothing to be nervous
I was walking
about.
by your office, and you said, "Hey, do you want to do this? And what would your topic be?" And something that I thought might be nice was, I think, when you're outside of the agency and you're looking in and you see all the work that we do, I think sometimes you might get the sense that everything goes completely smoothly. Like there are never any problems, whether it be about coming up with the ideas for our clients, or even once we have the idea and we're making this thing.
And sometimes people do say, well, it's easier for you guys to sell stuff because your clients expect this kind of thing, or But it's a complete shitstorm at all times.
It's a shitstorm, and almost on every project the shit hits the fan. And so I thought it would be cool if we talked about that and shared some of the stories that have happened with us on some of the projects, both in making the things and then coming up with ideas, some things where the clients have blown it up at the end, and we've had to sort of scramble and come up with new ideas at the last minute that sometimes have been better than the idea that we had before.
Almost always.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. And I mean, one of the earliest memories I have was with Subservient Chicken. This is more of a
it's pretty much the first thing that we ever did.
It was like like 3 or 4 months into it when it went live, and I think we thought it would. I don't know if we thought it would be as successful as it was.
No, we didn't.
But this thing goes live, and. And we're getting crazy traffic. People are seeing it from everywhere. And there was this moment of very complete high, right? Yeah. And it was quickly followed by, all of a sudden, like these keywords that were making this thing work get sort of hacked into, and this list gets, now people are seeing everything that, got one in the programming, and, there's some dirty stuff.
So just to clarify, we knew that people would ask the chicken to do things that were naughty. So in the programming, we had to be able to identify those words. So those words were hacked and then made public under the idea that we had created a porn site, I guess, basically.
Right. Yeah. And for a few of those words, the chicken did some of that stuff, which was something you asked not to have happen.
I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but
it did some of that stuff with the censor bar.
There were some programmers out of control.
And so this gets out, the videos are out, and then I remember getting an email from you, really angry, and I read it and I was like, this is it. Like, it was a good run, the 4-month run. And I mean, luckily, that stuff blew over, but I mean, that was one of those moments where, you didn't expect, people to be, snooping into the stuff and, seeing what it did, and then that getting out, and it was a scary moment, but we came through that, and, I mean, I learned that you can't assume that everything's going to... That was the first moment when I was like, wow, you can't plan for everything. Things are going to happen. And then with the server stuff, I mean, with the traffic, I mean, that was the earliest example, and we've made this mistake a few times over, and I think we've gotten it out of our system. But to remember to always, when we're coming up with these ideas, to make sure the ideas we can scale for traffic.
Yeah.
Like that was one where we had the last minute had to scramble and find servers.
Well, and I remember that was like one of the, with Subservient Chicken, people were mirroring our site and putting on their own servers to help us actually with the traffic. But so I don't know if that's happened since, but like with Simpsonize Me, we had the same sort of traffic. There was but we were sort of ready for it. Although it's still we thought we were ready. We thought we were ready, and we still weren't, because there was a time with Simpsonize Me where we were getting more traffic than Google.
Yeah,
right?
we had to have 60 servers.
Yeah.
At one point, it was very expensive. It was more expensive to host that thing than it was to make it.
For sure.
So that was sort of a lesson there that we sort of learned. You know, something recently has been this Coke Zero project that we've been working on, the facial profiler. So this thing, I mean, this is an idea that we've had for maybe 4 years, and then finally the client sort of signed off on it, and I think this is it's one of those examples where it is so innovative, and you're inventing something, and it doesn't exist, so you can't really plan for everything that's going to happen when you're going down making this thing, and we had gone down a path, and so the facial profiler, what it does is it finds the person out there on Facebook who looks like you, your doppelganger, and then gives you the opportunity to connect with them. So with this, we had gone down the path with a very experimental technology. We were partnering with the university, and they were doing some fancy stuff with buckyballs and things like that. And midway through, maybe 3 months into it, we realized that maybe we were using the wrong technology. Yeah. And it was one of those oh shit moments, like
because it wouldn't get any more accurate. So what we didn't realize is the technology we were using, you could put in 1,000 faces or 100,000 faces, and it didn't get more accurate. Yeah. So that was a bad moment.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, how are we gonna? We gotta, it's about to launch. Like, what are we gonna do? And so, luckily we, and this was another lesson that we were upfront and we were honest with the client ahead of time. That, hey, we're doing something here that hasn't been done before. So when we were able to go back to them and said, hey, look, this technology is not quite working. We might have to use something else. They weren't completely happy, but they understood that we were playing in sort of an experimental space, and sometimes things like this happen. And so, the other thing with that was that we quickly made a prototype of an alternative technology. Yeah. When we realized that this wasn't going to work, we found this other stuff that the Defense Department actually uses for Border Patrol and stuff. Yeah. And we made a prototype.
You're basically putting your face. You're probably putting your face into a national database that the police.
It could happen.
Yeah. Will actually tap into.
Yeah. So then that worked out, and now
But we're not really working with the authorities, though.
We're not working with
not
the
that we
authorities.
know of. Yeah. Not that we know of.
Yeah.
What did you bring there? Because you're almost out of time. We have to go to Q&A.
Really?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that I learned.
Concept of the show.
We're not gonna go through the details of this. We don't have time today. But you had given us all this book, Deep Survival. Yeah,
Deep Survival. Lawrence Gonzalez, Who Lives, Who Dies, and Why. Yeah. And it's really about like surviving in the wilderness. But if you start to read it, you really, I think, kind of begin to read it as a business book too. And we've been sharing it with everybody here because we think a lot of businesses are not going to survive some of the changes in the environment that are occurring now. And so the mindset that allows you to survive in the wilderness is actually, I think, very, very much in parallel to what allows a business to survive.
Yeah, for me, it was we were doing a lot of things and making stuff and coming up with ideas. Whenever we would run into these problems, we would do a lot of the things that were in this book, and some of the things that weren't in here that we should be doing. Yeah. And so that's why I liked it. So.
Did you want to present those cards? You're really out of time.
I think we're out of time. We just got a question.
You're out of time. We're going to. So we asked the question about about how much skin that you were showing. Right. One of the questions I saw that came in wasn't about this subject, but it was like, how hard was it to start using PCs? Because most agencies, historically, I first computer I ever had was an Apple. So. But I guess I thought it would be hard, and the question came in like, man, it must have been really hard, but it's just not that. Honestly, it's just not very different. I think there may have been a time, because I was imagining, oh, I'll have to learn DOS. I had no idea. I'll have to be punching in code to move from page to page or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's pretty much the same experience at this point.
It's pretty easy.
Some things are better, and some things are slightly worse. But overall, it's very comparable, and it was really easy. Yeah.
I haven't totally committed to the jump. I'm on a Mac running Vista.
Yeah, right.
And the moment I realized that was still a problem, I was in a Microsoft meeting with all these clients.
Yeah.
They all had their PCs around.
Yeah.
And I needed to take. I felt I didn't take it out because I felt.
And Vista runs well on a Mac. But I think I don't know. For me, it was easier to at first I tried that, running Vista, and that was just strange. It was a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier just to use the whole thing. So it has not been that hard. It's not. And so if you work on Windows, you have to use Windows, and that's a rule that we started from the beginning. And I've seen articles about how Windows advertising created on Macs and stuff. It's not true. And there's old pictures of me, and those are old pictures of me. So let's see. Do we have another question?
We have these questions.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go to this one. And if you don't believe that this is all live, you can ask us to do something like. I don't know, whatever.
Another button,
yeah,
or one up or down.
Whatever you got. So let's see. In a client's board meeting, the CEO loves your work. Board chairman is an argumentative jackass. Fight, flee, or kowtow. And this is actually what, when I was thinking about the topic and what you wanted to talk about, I was thinking more about the shit hitting the fan when you've got something that doesn't sell or, runs in, not so much like subservient chicken shit hitting the fan from a technological point of view, but more that you had a plan and it's suddenly blown up. And I think the thing that most that goes wrong with work most often is that when you have to make a change, people they don't make a big enough change, right? So an issue comes up and the chairman or whoever says, I don't like this for these reasons. It seems easier, and people try to hold on to the old idea and they make tweaks, and tweaks seem to always be the thing that makes most work that maybe was brilliant at one point just makes it average, And anything that's average doesn't really show up on the radar because it's just, here's the water line, which is average. And most advertising, I think, is, it's pretty good. I watch, advertising. It's like it's all pretty good. But the things that pop up through that, you've got to make a little bit special somehow. Yeah. And so I just encourage people, like, when something goes wrong, it's a huge opportunity, really, right? Because you get to change everything. And it's funny because if you ask any creative and you sat down with them and you said, hey, is change and creativity, are those cousins, or are they siblings? You would say, yeah, of course. You got to change things, got to change it up. But if the change comes from a place that's determined the wrong place, right? If it's your client, sometimes it's like, oh well, I can no longer see it as change. I can no longer see it as that kin to creativity. I see it as this other thing. And you get in this defensive sort of, fearful
you turn it
mode.
into a game sometimes where there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that I've seen a lot is when something goes wrong with the work and conceptually it gets blown apart, right? Sometimes people will want to punish their clients. I don't know if you've ever seen that, right? It's like, well, we'll just give them what they deserve, and they'll just have to live with that. And the funny thing is, there's no way that the client is ever going to feel punished, right? I mean, they'll never notice.
No.
And
they'll be mad at you at the end if it didn't work.
Yeah, they'll be mad at you, but you've also punished yourself because you took away that opportunity. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, the thing I learned from you always was just listening to the client and making them your partner, you know, in this whole thing.
Well, you know, I mean, this sounds like kowtowing, which was one of the questions.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if kowtowing is listening, then you should kowtow.
Yeah.
You know, because they may not be in the business of creating advertising, but you may, but they probably got where they are because they're pretty smart. I mean, most of our clients are really smart, and they do give great feedback. It's up to us to take that and turn it into something that makes the work better. That's not, you know, that's not their job to make the work better. They may have a solution based on their ideas and their knowledge of their business that may ruin the work, but you can take that same knowledge and make the work great.
Right.
Got a question here.
The committee one, that's a good one.
Yeah. How do you save the work in the room when the committee starts overthinking and tearing apart the work? Meetings are a whole different skill set than doing work and reacting. I think meetings are kind of the neatest moment in what we do because it's all live in real time. And I was thinking about how we did some crowdsourcing, and we were getting these logos in, and the logos are coming in real time, and the client is seeing them at the same time we're seeing them. And I thought, and as a creative director, your old way of handling that sort of logos would be you'd be culling out tons of them, and then you'd come with, you know, a very small selection.
Yeah.
But when it's all happening live and the client is seeing things at the exact same time you are, that's actually like running a meeting. It's a slightly different skill set, you know. And running a meeting is the thing that I've always liked to do. Is I go into a meeting where all the work is dead, right? Mm-hmm. And we call it, you know, be the ninja. And it's probably it probably doesn't make any sense, and it's probably inaccurate, but somewhere I think one of us read one time that ninjas go into battle believing that they're already dead, and that way they can fight a beautiful fight, right? So it's probably not ninjas, it's probably samurais, but anyway, we say, you know, if someone's off to a meeting, we might say be the ninja. You kill all the work before you go in, and you have no emotional attachments to anything, and you just are able to have conversations about stuff. And I think that when you get the emotion out of it, then when those meetings go bad and when that committee starts, mm-hmm. you know, generating a lot of stuff, you don't fall into a defensive mode. You just stay in the present, and you can, you know, kind of battle beautifully.
Yeah.
I also think sometimes, and this is kind of awful to say, but I think sometimes a client may, because they've worked in such bad situations for so long, they may be looking for what your favorite thing is to try to ding that one out, you know? You
have some techniques to combat that, right?
And what are they?
Well, you'll say that there'll be an idea that you like, but you'll say maybe you don't like that one.
Well, I don't know. I never lie, but I will do things like one of the things that clients think is you're going to present your favorite idea last, right? So what I like to do is we'll put 3 ideas out and say, pick a pile, and we'll start there. And then, you know, it's
You're
like,
not
oh,
showing
wow.
your hand.
Well, it's not showing the hand because I really don't have a favorite one.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I find is in meetings, I will find my favorite in the meeting, not before the meeting. During the meeting, you realize things that you didn't realize outside, you know, prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid, and I encourage the creative directors.
Yeah.
If you're presenting something, and something about it you realize in the meeting.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like this doesn't work. I'll just say, you know what? Here's what I don't like about this campaign now, and it just struck me.
And they'll respect you more for that.
And I'll just chuck the campaign.
Yeah.
Sometimes throwing boards when you don't like them, that's always just a very fun, kind of effective means to show how casual you are about the conversation.
I mean, sometimes too, like you're in a meeting, things will be going bad. It's good to know when to just sort of retreat from that idea, like not push it so much.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get your heart is so much in an idea, and like the clients are saying da, 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 and you start fighting for it, and you don't know when to just stop. and move on to something else.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
just
that's
and
important.
sometimes it's important just to stop the conversation about it, because the conversation can be very authentic, but another kind of conversation that can develop is, I'm right and you're wrong, or here's my point of view and here's yours. And then the work is stuck in the middle of this conversation, that it actually is more about who's right and who's wrong, and the work is what's going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
So pulling the work off the table, or even out of consideration, I think is a fair thing to do. You know, it's like taking soldiers off the field of battle. It's like, we're going to retreat, you know, but we're going to survive, and we'll be able to patch ourselves up and come back. You know. Looking at another question here. Does the committee mean that mediocrity is more often the norm? Is it the fiercely independent CD a dead concept? Well, do you want to take that one? The fiercely independent CD?
I mean, over here, I don't think anyone's really independent.
Yeah,
I think it's all a team.
we've never had that.
So maybe that is dead. I think especially in this day and age when there are so many different mediums, and you know
I always think there's room
CDs
for everything. I think there's room for everything. There's room for that. You know, that's just not. It's never been our thing. You know, we've never done the, hey, if you don't buy this ad, I'm going to jump out of this window, or you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
There's all those legends of, you know, people selling work that way, and I love those stories, but I could never get up to that. You know,
I don't have it. No.
I don't have it in me.
I'm wearing a purple. No.
Yeah.
I've got a purple shirt on. I can't do that.
You're a sensitive guy.
Yeah. What else?
Crowdsourcing, a hot topic for recent debate. Fear it or embrace it. You know, you want to take that one? You want to talk a little bit about crowdsourcing?
I think you have to embrace it. I wonder, we've never had this conversation, at a certain, I mean, like, there must be a fine line somewhere where it's like crowdsourcing can go too far, and then it starts to become lazy, you know? And I think there's like a fine line that, you know, people have to sort of ride, and I think, like anything, you know, it's the hot topic, people embrace it. People are inevitably going to go too far.
But you don't see, I don't personally see that genie going back into the bottle, and I also see a lot of value coming out of that, you know, those conversations. So, you know, how you play it and how much of it you play is really, I think, up to every client and every agency and every situation.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, for me, the issue is, if I'm Doritos, and Doritos expanded their sort of crowdsourcing thing, which is like they did Super Bowl spots. Now they're doing more, I think, and they're getting them from the crowd, and they're paying $5 million for the best scripts and stuff. So, okay, why would they pay $5 million? Because I've never been paid $5 million for scripts. You know, why are they paying that much? And the reality is, what they're creating is an ecosystem of ideas and back and forth, and there's going to be many more than the best ideas. There's going to be, you know, hundreds potentially of ideas, maybe thousands of ideas, and videos and things like that. So managing and getting the most out of that conversation that they're creating with that investment, that's a really great job for an agency, right? And there's a lot of creativity that would be involved in doing that well. So I wouldn't mind being the digital agency in that scenario, right? Yeah. If I was the traditional agency, and my role is, I'm going to massage some of these scripts, I'll work and we'll make sure they're produced well, and that I would be very concerned about that role, because it really is not bringing that much value, right? So I think that, you know, within the agency model, there's going to be a place for crowdsourcing, and it's not going to be 100%. It absolutely could never answer 100% of the issues and the work that you've got to do, but there will be some place for it. And if the place is just, and if your place as an agency is that you're just helping vet the ideas, that's dangerous territory. Yeah. I would not feel secure in my future. Agencies struggle with being media neutral. Is there a new model for the creative team? How do you approach briefs with that in mind? You want to take that?
Well, I mean, we've sort of evolved since we started doing digital, and how we approach sort of creative teams. And I think at first it was that smelly room with me and those other guys, working together.
And it wasn't you that smelled. I want to be clear
I didn't smell. It was the other three
yeah.
guys, and they don't work here anymore, so we can say that. But I think we had something cool there, and we didn't really know it. As we grew the group and we added more interactive creatives and we brought more traditional people into it, we started to silo things a little bit. And we did it by mistake, and the work got a little worse, I think. And then together we created that thing of pods, right?
Yeah.
Where we had like interactive creatives working with a tech guy, interaction designer, a producer working together as a team. And I really think that's sort of the new creative team. When we went to that model of those people working together, almost like an A-team, I think that's when it got a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think so there's 800 people watching, which is fun. I thought that's more. That's great. Did you see that? The media neutrality thing. I think just how we ask people to do it is. We used to look for big ideas, and we'd ask for paragraphs from teams for a big idea. We tweaked that recently, and we're not always good about it, but we try to do this. And what we do now is we ask for press releases. So because you can get into an argument. Well, I think this idea is not that big. Well, I think it's really big. And, it's difficult to say. But if you work in press releases, it's kind of obvious to everybody. Well, would this press release get picked up, right? Or would it not? And so you don't really get into those arguments about whether it's a good idea. And we found that we wrote a press release. That was a funny one. We wrote a press release for Tony Stewart. Yeah. And the brief was no one trusts advertising, and especially celebrity endorsement, right? So how do you handle that issue? So we said, well, we'll do this lie detector test with Tony Stewart, and we'll ask him live whether he likes the Whopper or not, right? And in the brief we talked about in the press release where we described the idea, we mentioned
Sarah
Jessica Parker as an endorsement that wasn't believable.
Yeah.
And then when we saw the actual article that was written about it, the reporter used Sarah Jessica. She pulled pulled the same idea, the same person out of the ether, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah. And so to me, it felt like we really had tapped into the right cultural tension on that.
Yeah.
Now it's not a question, but one guy says that I'm so stupid I make George Bush look smart. So I don't know how to answer that. If you could put it in form of a question, are you so stupid?
Yeah.
Make sure.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think I got George, but I am fairly stupid.
He did go to Yale. Is it Yale?
Yeah, that was fixed. Let's see. Same question. What project did we need a SWAT team for?
Well, so we were working on those Xbox games, and we had this dev kit at the agency, and Microsoft and BK said, guard this thing with your life. I mean, it was worth like maybe $17,000, but then on top of that, it had millions of dollars worth of just proprietary, information on it. So they said, guard it with your life. We gave them this, this is what we're going to do to keep it safe. And one day, just for a few hours, one of the guys who was working on the games, he went home at 4 in the morning and came back a few hours later, and it was gone. And somebody had taken it.
So do you even tell this story?
I was talking to someone last. They're okay with it. So somebody took it. It turned out somebody in the cleaning crew had taken it, and they sent a SWAT team to his house to get this thing back.
An actual.
Yeah.
Not like CPB SWAT.
No. Like the police SWAT team went to his house, got this thing back. Client was happy. Everyone was okay, but he thought it was a regular Xbox.
Yeah. That's kind of scary. We used to have a room here where you needed several layers of security to get into, where they would do the retouching on Volkswagens that weren't out yet, that you couldn't release images of. And I was only allowed in the room once, I think.
I didn't even know about.
You didn't even know the room existed.
Yeah.
All right. That's how secret the room was.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any other questions? What about some questions here? The Chicago White Sox are starting a digital marketing agency. Why? Actually, my question, what the fuck? From MP Fogarty. Do you know why?
It's digital.
Yeah.
It's all about digital now. I mean, I think that, especially for these teams, I mean, think about where you get all your sports information from and where you follow all of them. I mean, it's all on the internet now. The way I follow the world, like all these baseball games and NFL games is just on the internet. So it makes sense that they'd be doing this. And hopefully, like this agency, I think what they can do is build up that fan base for the team, through digital, and make them, make the fans bigger partners in it all. There was a soccer team a couple years ago, and they basically crowdsourced the calls and things that they would that the coach would make for the team. And people would, with their cell phone,
How'd they do?
I don't know how they did, but people would basically decide which players should be on the field, what plays they should play.
It would be shocking if they did all right.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that surprises me is sometimes when you're getting questions from the crowd, or advice from the crowd, how sophisticated it is. Right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
MyStarbucks.com freaks me out.
Yeah.
Because if you go there and you look at the advice people are given, and the ideas that are thumbed up, and the passion, it's totally different than what you expect.
Yeah.
I would think it's like, okay, how about free muffins on Thursdays, and people would be, awesome idea, right? Because because I don't work there. I'd be like, yeah, more free stuff. But the little ecosystem there is like, oh no, that sucks. We'll never make any money on it.
Yeah.
So. And they'll even take ideas and they'll say, this idea works really well with our affiliate program that we've started and things like that, that they have a really sophisticated sense of what's going on at Starbucks. So I'm just saying, like, you probably could get calls from the sidelines and they'd be pretty decent.
They'd be good.
You could have an aggregator that would just, it'd be funny, because everyone, I mean, if you've ever watched football too, everyone is saying, this is what the call ought to be, right? If you've ever been in a room, everyone's making their call. It would be funny, just whatever's most popular that's being tweeted in, that's what goes in.
That's the play.
I bet it wouldn't work too. And have no head coach. People would love that.
The Redskins should try that. It can't get any worse.
There's a question. What is your measure of success for digital advertising?
I mean, for me, it's always like the cultural impact. Like, I always thought before I came here that sort of the measure of my success was whether I got a 0.05% click-through rate. And it was a very sort of shallow feeling. But now, like, when we make these things and you see real people using them, you see it on the news or your mom tells you about it, you didn't even tell her about it. I mean, that's kind of like, I feel like I matter.
Yeah.
And so that's just on a personal note. And then I think for a client success, I mean, when they're selling things and when they're successful, and they did it with digital ideas, I mean, that's pretty cool, because then you see the power and the opportunity in it. Because it always used to be the side thing. It was the extra thing that, did it matter, didn't matter, it doesn't really matter. But now when you see it working, and it really helps those clients' problems, it's pretty great.
I just spoke yesterday at this CIO conference that Cisco was putting on. And, I hadn't thought much about CIOs, and I was asked to talk about CIOs as brand manager, right? Chief Information Officer as a brand manager. And as I had to talk about it, so I had to think about it. And as I thought about it, I realized that what's really what's happening, and we've talked a little bit about this, is that digital advertising used to be just that, digital advertising. But less and less is it what you'd call advertising, and more it's new digital products, new digital apps that have a lot of marketing buzz that gets created around the app, right, and the product. But you can't really, it doesn't go away because it has become part of the function of how that brand operates. So whether it's like Pizza Tracker for Domino's or some of the other things we're working on for Domino's, or even
real tools. Yeah,
they're real tools. Like if you develop how the pizza gets put together and you make that a really interactive experience, it's what used to be. We used to probably just do a pizza maker and you could send a friend a pizza and it was like a little subsite. Now it's actually how the company does business, and
it's the product.
And that's how I judge the success too, because we have things that are translating where there was no tool, and then we add a tool, and it's millions and millions of dollars worth of incremental business that wasn't there the week before. You know, and that's a real easy measurement.
Somebody didn't like the Redskins remark.
I think I don't. What was the Redskins remark?
They're not doing very well. If there was ever a team that could try this, you know, crowdsourcing plays,
so the Redskins
they can't get any worse.
Really? I didn't know that. Well, that would be an exciting opportunity for them. I think you need to take a team that's like in the cellar, winless, and say, what the hell, right?
Yeah, the Titans.
Just let's try it, right? At least the fans would show up, you know, and they're all texting, you know. That'd be pretty. I think it's a great. I think it's a huge idea. Whoever creates that app is going to be very famous.
Right.
Yeah. The future of print designers. Is print dead? Should we become creative handymen? Motion VFX or web? I'm going to take a little bit of this because one thing, no media or medium has ever replaced the mediums that were there before, right? So when radio came, it didn't replace print, and when TV came, it didn't replace radio, and as the web has come, it hasn't replaced television, or it just doesn't really happen. It changes the environment, and it changes the way people use these things, but nothing's ever been replaced. So print is, in my opinion, print is fine, and more than fine. It's wonderful, and it's a great place to spend an entire career. I went to a summit when I was just in the business, and I had learned that print was going to die, right? So this is like 20 years ago, and it was all about the death of print. And no one remembers this, but they said that there would be no magazines because people were going to instead of reading their magazines, they'd get them on VHS, right? And they'd pop it in the VHS, and they'd sit back with their Time magazine and watch it. And everyone was really convinced that this would happen. And it obviously didn't happen. But I was a print designer, and I went to this thing, and I'm like, oh man, I'm dead, right? There's not going to be any print. So I knew this guy, Chuck Porter, and I knew that he just started working in this agency, and I thought, if I was in an agency, I'll learn video, and then I will survive, right? So it's sort of what happened to me in terms of my career, but I would have been just as successful to focus in print. And I think in some ways, you know, anytime, like social media right now, what aren't people paying attention to because they're all talking about social media, right? I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in some of these areas that are getting left behind, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to create some great expertise and great stories. There's an amazing radio campaign that's going to happen because everyone's just like social media, right? And certain areas become much less competitive, right? So if you have, and I also think it's where your passion is. If your passion is in print, you will do really well because you've got so many people who are just saying, that's not interesting anymore. And in fact, it is. Do you have anything to add to that?
I just had a side thing, which was, you know, I always noticed that, you know, the people who are good at print, they're just craftsmen, you know, graphic designers. They're just so great at it. And some of that craft hasn't really translated it onto digital. Like a lot of the art directors that I'll interview and stuff, they'll be great with ideas and things, but there's not necessarily that passion or art. They can't design, basically, at the end of the day. And so, I mean, those skills are, even though, like, I mean, I think anyone, even if your focus is print, you should try and find a way to bring some of those great skills into other spaces.
Yeah. I mean, wherever, like you look at typography.
Yeah.
It would be fun to just be dedicated to typography right now.
Yeah.
You know, because it's really dismal.
It's not bad.
What comes out of school and people's lack of understanding of it. You know, and so we have all, you know. I've got a friend, Dave Schwartz, who I grew up with, I went to high school with, and he works here. He's creative director, and he's like the crusty old dude that like takes all the new recruits in and sits them down and says, look, this is, you know, here's some basic things about typography, which, you know, it helps a little bit, but there's just some passion lacking from some of these things, you know. can you really say mediums won't go away? Newspapers, magazines. I mean, the post office is dying. GQ's selling maps as phone apps. Yes, I can really say that mediums won't go away because it's never happened. There's still people that are occasionally cave painting and things like that. So it all sticks around. It changes and it might get smaller, but it will not go away. I can say that with absolute certainty, unless we all die. If they get that particle accelerator going out there, and they create a black hole, and the Earth collapses into it. Then I think that all mediums will go away. And I think there's like a 50-50 chance that will happen. So I wouldn't be, I'd worry more about the particle accelerator than print.
Right. There are other things to be concerned about.
Yeah. Let's see. What's the most successful baked-in campaign, not from CPB, in terms of a great idea? Do you want to take that one? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I always like the Nike ID stuff. I mean, we always look at that, and there's some people here who worked on that. But I mean, there is a product, and the process of buying the product is the ad. Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun, and it's something you tell your friends about, and then you're wearing these things. And I remember when we were working on it, and I would have all these crazy shoes. I mean, people would ask me about it. And, I mean, those were ads. The product was the ad.
Yeah. And what about Nike Plus?
That's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Although, I could never really get into it. I'm not really a runner.
It seems to drop you off at some point, though. There's something about it that does drop you off, but it gets really, it's definitely exciting, and it does, at the beginning, you tend to tell a lot of people about it.
Yeah.
The one that for me is still one of my favorites is the flip video.
Yeah.
And I just love the way that and I think partly because it really got me. It really surprised me. I didn't see it coming. I love the product. I love the simplicity. So they did the right things. One of the baked-in ideas is simplify and sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
So they, in a features game, what everyone thought was add more features, add more fidelity, add longer zoom. That was what everyone was doing. They took it and stripped it down to pretty much on and off, right? And then which was great, and you bought it for that, and you loved it for that. And then when you plugged it in, up popped all these different ways to share it, and they made it so easy and so immediate that you started emailing it to your friends, and I think they've had a lot of success because it really is a great baked-in product. We've got a howdy from friends at Seneca College in Toronto. Seneca College in Toronto. If you're looking for a great ad school to go to, I think that's one of the best. And Anthony there, who you could follow at Southside Ad Guy, is super passionate about advertising and really an amazing guy. And sometimes I meet students who have cocky attitudes and bad attitudes, and you see it standing in their way. They're not learning because they're.
There's a question about that advice.
Yeah, there is
for students. It was a while back.
Advice for students. Well, go to Seneca College. No, we probably have other advice as well. Answer that one.
Oh, I mean, for me, I never went to design school, art school, and it's something that I regret because I think it was the time where I could have experimented and tried different things and failed, and it was time to figure out who I was as a person who did ads. I mean, there's that part. I mean, the other part is figure out if you're passionate about it, and if you are, just follow that passion and persevere. I mean, I remember my portfolio. It was a bunch of fluorescent table tents and strange postcards and things for these random acts that would come to the university. I mean, there's no reason I should be sitting here.
My portfolio was so bad. I still have it somewhere.
I have mine. I should bring. It's
I should bring
like-
mine. I should bring mine, and we should look at my
Yeah.
like school portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a fun show.
But I was able to just show that I was passionate about, what I was doing in my job interviews and things like that. And, I was able to
to
charm my way
illustrate.
into
I had
person.
no idea what I wanted to do.
Oh.
It was just confusing. Like
Yeah.
I had some illustrations. I remember there was like a illustration of a pie, and there was
Yeah.
like some illustrations of some motorcycles,
Yeah.
and there was like a kind of non-conceptual layout. For
I had a
motorcycles.
watercolor painting of a rose on a piano.
Yeah, that was what my.
And, and we would get to it in the thing, and they didn't really know what to think.
Yeah. Yeah, my first guy.
I didn't have anything else though.
And I showed this guy, Dick Shield, who became a great mentor to me, and I showed him my portfolio, and he looked through it, and he's like, so his question to me is, do you want to be an art director or a designer? And I didn't even know the difference, so I was just like, yes, And I don't know, he gave me a job, and I slowly learned about advertising because I was in an advertising agency.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I think that you do have to find your passion, but you don't have to know your passion. I don't know if that makes sense, right? Because I don't know that I knew my passion. I still don't know if I know my passion. I find it in different aspects of what's available, right? And it shifts, and there are certain things that are consistent, but a lot of stuff changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're also going to get bored. One thing that I would say is make sure if you're a student, I think that a lot of students or a lot of people in advertising used to come out of journalism. They used to come out of art schools, and then this was sort of a commercial route for people, right? Where they could take those skills. And I think this is an issue that advertising faces too, and we've talked about it. More people are who have the kind of skills that I think we need are deciding not to go into agencies.
For sure.
Are deciding not to go into digital agencies, but are wanting to do development work, right? And I think that twofold. One, maybe that's the right thing to do. Because it is really interesting. And two, if you're, we're doing work with CU now on this Boulder Digital, what do we call it? Boulder Digital Works.
Digital Works.
And in the school, I went over there to look at the work that some early students had done, and it blew me away. I sat down for like 5, 10-minute presentations, and they were all so good because they really understood the environment. It wasn't because they were creatively better than someone else who might have a more specific ad training, but they were looking at the big
space.
They were looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something that if you're in a traditional ad school, figure out how you're going to understand that stuff. And if you're going into school, or if you're looking to augment your skill set, think about getting into even Boulder Digital Works. There's like a 3-day program for people who are working.
Yeah, boot camp.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at. I was looking at work from the 3-day boot camp, and it was sick, so good. So now this person says, okay, the fiercely independent CD is dead, which I don't think that's true. There's always room for every type, but how does a group or a concept avoid mediocrity? How does a group? So that's an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea has always been the singular genius. I think it's the legend of creativity, right? Is the singular genius.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that word mediocrity and it made me think. Andrew Keller has some quote about, and we've talked about this, like sometimes as a creative director, even in a group setting especially, you feel the pressure to be nice and not kill everything.
Yeah.
And that's how things become mediocre. Like when you as a creative director you're unwilling to like kill things and be bold and make a decisive decision.
Yeah.
That's when you end up with a lot of mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean we've done something too. So, and also I'm not sure what you mean by fiercely independent, because you do have to you have to use your standards as a CD, right? You can't use the standards that you're getting. You can't set the bar based on the work that's coming in. You have to set the bar, and then you have to ask people to get over the bar. But the other way that you have to set the bar is you have to have your own ideas, right? And I think we went through a period here for a while where creative directors were almost like highly paid traffic people. They were just collecting the ideas, making sure they were, at 90 degrees and stapling the corner, right? And then bringing them to the ECD. And then the ECD was collecting them and bringing them to me, but and that was a really bad thing because if you get promoted to creative director, my assumption is it's because you had great ideas, right? It wasn't because someone thought this person's a spectacular manager of people. Mm-hmm. Now you need to develop that as a creative director and become a manager of people. But my thing on managing people is, you've probably heard me say this, like, you can only mismanage people, right? Because it's uncomfortable. Like, I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm not your mom or dad. And it feels like too much power. But I do have this job and I do have this bar, and so I am going to tell you what to do. I just try to do it really quickly. And get it done with, and don't make it a big debate, and then move on. So that you're mismanaging, but you're mismanaging in short little bursts, rather than like long drawn out mismanagement. Let's see. You don't know your passion, web hosting and your marketing. Someone sent in an ad. If you're looking for web hosting for your marketing, I recommend. I can't go through the whole thing. Best 10 hosts. Oh no, it's not an ad. It's actually on Dig. There's you can see the best 10 hosts for Dig. With tons of seasoned talent unemployed, what advice could you give a marketing comm person seeking a transition to agency life? You better take that one.
Well, we had that one guy here, Chris, Twitter Chris, who he was he had lost his job, and he was trying to find a way into the agency, and he came and interviewed, and then afterwards he started a Twitter campaign where I think he took you and me and said, hey, if you guys tweet these guys, I'll give so much money to something. And he started this campaign, and it came out of nowhere. I mean, it was a use of Twitter that we hadn't really seen, and I think what was great about that is that he used his marketing skills that he would usually apply to other clients and things. He used it for himself. And he used unconventional ones, like with Twitter, and using the social space in a way that no one had used before. When we see somebody using it for themselves, you can only imagine what they do with the clients. And so it worked for him. It for sure stood out, from everybody else.
But if someone's a marketer and they want to go to the agency side, the question is, how do they do that? And that's can you refresh the screens because they went away?
Is that what it is?
It sounds like they might be a client. I mean, the transition to the agency from the client side can be kind of challenging. I guess what I would do is I would look for agencies that have clients that are in a category that you've got experience in, and I would make a list of not too many that you really want to get in, because I think what too many people are doing wrong now is they're doing these blanket lists, and it's fairly time consuming to send out to 500 people, and I think it's super ineffective, right? There's this show on one of the radio shows or something, and it's in New York, and they give you 10 minutes to make a pitch, right? And it's people who have not been able to find jobs for a long time, and they're like, okay, 10-minute pitch, something like that, right? Maybe it's 5-minute pitch or 2-minute pitch. But what I noticed about the people who make these pitches is that their pitches are probably similar to the pitch that's not getting them hired for the last 6 months. And it's very shotgun. It's, here's my list of degrees. I'd be good at this.
I'm a team player.
But I would be good in these 10 industries. Right? It's way too broad. And I think that if you are trying to move from one place in marketing to another, try to come up with, okay, I'm going to take 5 rifle shots, and make sure that I get into these companies and I meet with the right people and spend the time, if I didn't meet with the right person, to go to the next meeting that gets you to the right person. And the other thing I would say is be careful of this. A lot of people try to get to me because they think that it's like, well, if I talk to Alex, that'll be a good way to get hired.
Yeah.
It's potentially the very worst thing, because if you name drop my name in an interview with Jeff or somebody else, right? Well, I've been talking to Alex for a while, and I thought it seemed like a good time for me to come in and talk. I don't know what your reaction is, but my hunch is it's like, dick, and you feel that you're being almost pressured, right? And what people sometimes get a little bit upside down when they're looking for a job is they think that the dynamic is they need something that I've got, right? And if that's the dynamic, and people come in with that dynamic, you actually you start to wonder, like, well, do I have something that they want, and what is it? And you're kind of checking your pockets. The real dynamic of hiring, when it's effective, is you have something I want, right? And so you don't you don't want to get into that other kind of dynamic. You want to stay with the idea that here's my offer, it's great, I can solve all sorts of problems that you have now, you're tearing your hair out, you don't have enough help, boom, you get hired.
Yeah.
So I think we're out of time. So next week we'll have somebody on, and we're looking at some different people. Love to hear who in the agency that you might want us to sit down with. Rob Riley or Andrew Keller. We've got Winston and Prindle, who are out of the production group, and they've got some really interesting experience. And then also, I thought we might have some people from the Boulder area. There's some friends of mine who are really into the green space that might be interesting. There's some people into transportation and multimodal options for transportation that I think are really interesting, because there's a lot of that stuff happening in Boulder, so we could do that as well. So tweet us any ideas. We're going to do it at the same time, same day, next week in the same place, so we can we won't be moving around. The URL will be the same one that we used today, and we'll see you then, hopefully. And just give us some feedback. We're trying to make it better. Thanks.